Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. The race for Bergen County Clerk has never gotten this much media attention, and it's all because Bridget Kelly won the Republican nomination. Kelly is the former Deputy Chief of Staff to Governor Chris Christie, and she was involved in BridgeGate. We talked with her last week. And now we give equal time to the man that Kelly is trying to unseat, the current clerk of Bergen County, Democrat John Hogan. Mr. Hogan, thanks so much for doing this. Did you ever think that the Bergen County clerk election would get this much attention?
Never in my lifetime, but I'm glad because it gives us a chance to highlight many of the accomplishments that we've been able to carry out during the past 10 years.
Well, that's wonderful. I do want to get into that. First, I want to talk about your announcement that you were running for re-election, because of course, I think a lot of people know, and if they don't, Bridget Kelly is running against you. She got the Republican nomination. She is the same Bridget Kelly that was convicted in the BridgeGate traffic jam that the Christie administration caused when they shut down lanes at the George Washington Bridge, and then her conviction was overturned. You had your announcement speech at the George Washington Bridge.
Yes.
And you called her candidacy embarrassing. You called her deplorable.
Yes.
She came back at that and said that she was surprised, as you said a moment ago, you got to get a chance to talk about your record. She said, isn't it surprising that he attacked me and didn't talk about his record because he doesn't have a record to run on? Your response?
Well, half of my presentation wasn't covered by the media that day, and that included my record. Half of my prepared script, you could see, covered my record. And of course, I spoke about my record, and people know my record. I have a solid record. I always did the right thing for the people I served. I never closed the bridge. I never thought of doing anything that devious in my life. It was the biggest scandal that ever hit Bergen County.
She says she did nothing wrong. I interviewed her last week. She says she did nothing wrong. The Supreme Court overturned her conviction. It was others that she wishes would be implicated in this.
She's trying to rewrite history. You know, if you look at the documents, simple Google can tell you it. On July 21st, the Associated Press wrote an article, and it says former BridgeGate villain seeks political resurrection. That's the Associated Press saying it. She got off on a technicality. The wrong laws were applied to her by the prosecutors at the time. But Justice Kagan said that there were actually criminal acts that were committed. Unfortunately, she was charged with the wrong acts, and she was weeks away, days away from going to prison. And, you know, everyone should have a chance to rebuild their life. But I don't think that she feels entitled. She thinks that because she always had a paid political job. I worked in the private sector. She always had a paid political job. She feels entitled that she should get another political job. And this was what was offered to her. She's trying to rewrite history, and she's writing a book in the meantime.
Now, I will, admittedly, I set you up for that answer, but you did attack her on your own. And you would think, you've been in office now, what, 11 years?
10 years.
10 years. And that 10 years, you've been challenged in the past. I would imagine that the challengers that you've had in a Democratic county, you've been able to dispose of easily. Are you concerned about her because of her name recognition and how well she did in the Republican primary?
I think she has negative name recognition. I think Republicans are going to vote for Republicans in a primary. Democrats are going to vote for Democrats. I did well in the primary from the Democratic turnout. I had a challenger. She didn't have a challenger. And, we're running an aggressive campaign, and every campaign I run is aggressive, because the first time I won 11 years ago, at that point when the election occurred, I only won by 1.5% of the vote. That's when the county was in the process of changing as far as Democrat, Republican, and I won 28 out of 70 towns. Since then, in my reelection, I won by 70,000 votes. So, we're trending in the right direction because people know what we're doing. They know how we've modernized the office. When we came here to the office, was in the last century, was operating like it was in the last century, and it was 11 years into the new century. So, we went right away. We kept our promises. We delivered. We've saved $2 million on election printing costs, a promise that I had made, and many, many other things that we can speak about when you're ready, Larry.
Well, absolutely. We'll get to it. This is the last question about this. This is another quote from Bridget Kelly when she said, John Hogan, the scion of local political dynasty, never had to work a day in his adult life. Today, he seized on juvenile drama to distract from his own record of misappropriation of taxpayer dollars on promotional materials and patronage for his political friends. And what she's alluding to there is that on some county paid literature, you've included your picture, and some political opponents, I will say, political opponents have said that that amounts to campaign literature and the county shouldn't be paying for it. Your response to all that?
None of that has happened the year that I'm running for reelection. Of course, every county clerk has to get the word out there, and they have to put their name on the documents that are sent out, or else no one knows who it's coming from. I think she's wrong. I think she's out of touch. I think she's trying to create issues that really don't exist. I'm proud of my family's heritage. My father died when I was 16 years old. He was only 50 after a 4-year battle of throat cancer. Our family was devastated. We didn't have any money. We had to build ourselves up again. I went to the only college I could afford that was 10 minutes away, St. Thomas Aquinas College, and I worked on the maintenance department. So there's no big family money or anything like that. I've worked my whole life, 25 years, I believe it was, in the insurance business in different levels, areas of the insurance business. I started out as a claim investigator in the South Bronx. So she's got no idea about my life. I know one thing: I never let the people down. I always did the right thing for the people that I served as mayor, as a councilman, as vice chairman of the county planning board, which I didn't get paid for any of those positions. She got paid for every political job she had.
I started off the interview by saying, did you ever imagine this much attention for a county clerk election? Maybe we should back up and explain what a county clerk does. The position is pretty important.
The county clerk has been around before George Washington. It was pretty much set up by the King of England because someone had to keep track of all the land records. And that's essential that someone should know that if they're running for the office. There's 4 divisions. One is the counter division, which handles passports, notary publics, and many of the other transactions like that. There's an elections division. We handle a big portion of the election process, but not all of it. We have a land records management division where all the deeds and mortgages, the paper transactions from years past, wind up for title searchers to participate in. And then we have a registry division where all the land transactions pass through, so that if someone pays off their mortgage, that comes to our registry division. If someone sells a house, it goes to the registry division. So the county clerk handles many of the transactions of people's lives who live in Bergen County.
Now, Bridget Kelly attacked your record, saying you had none to speak of, and you answered that, and you said that most of my speech was about my record. And a moment ago, you said, I hope you'll let me get to that in a moment. So we're wrapping up now. I will let you get to that. Why don't you give me a couple of things that you're running on and you're proudest of accomplishing?
The biggest thing is that we're running this office at the same cost that it was 30 years ago. We've reduced spending, we've increased technology, we've made it simpler for people to utilize the services of our office right from their home computer. I can tell you election results, when I first came into office, we heard that they took weeks because there weren't enough of election counter devices. So we've gotten all that technology up and running, and we want to keep it that way. We don't want to go back to running it like it was the last century. We've kept the political aspects out of the office. I made a promise that I would cut elections printing costs by $200,000 a year. I kept that promise. That's now a $2 million savings. We carried out elections during Hurricane Sandy and during the pandemic of last year. So, we've been doing the job. We have a property fraud alert system. We have a new election reporting system. There's a lot of good stuff happening in the county clerk's office. Our staff is less than it was 30 years ago. It's 55 people right now.
Mr. Hogan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Larry.
Bergen County Clerk John Hogan. Still to come on Jersey Matters, advice on how to deal with the dreaded spotted lanternfly. Next.